All right. Not a great week for us in terms of results on the field. So I hate losing to the Squealers, man. I mean, I have absolutely no use for it. I'm telling you. But that is a fact of life. Squealers were victorious in the former Heinz Field there, and let's go ahead and go over this game as well. Ravens flat out didn't lose to the Steelers on. I mean, they lost. Obviously, they lost. I mean, you see the score there, but they flat out beat themselves. Beat themselves. Steel fans been telling me all week, obviously, dude, like y'all, this team is not Super Bowl level, clearly. But if the Ravens are going to beat themselves, it's I don't know what to say. You've lost 4 games, really, essentially. And even all the 7 losses in the last 2 seasons, maybe except for the AFC Championship game last year. You had 3 losses in the regular season last year. You had 1, obviously, in the AFC Championship game last year. And I think probably all except for that one, and you could argue that one, the AFC Championship, you beat themselves. These are the type of losses that you've had this year with the Raiders, with the Chefs, with the Browns, and certainly in this one, just making too many mistakes. Lamar, I thought this was his worst game that he's played probably all season long. 16 to 33, under 50%, 207, 1 TD, 1 interception. I honestly didn't pay much attention to the record versus the Steelers. I think there is something to the fact that these teams in the division understand him more. Tomlin seems to have a beat on him. It does seem that way to me, where they seem to have a beat on the least what he's able to do. I think it's that, and it's I think the pass rush bugs him more than any other team. Usually Lamar Jackson, when he's playing out there on the field, can take the edge. That doesn't happen with Pittsburgh. He struggles to get the edge. The pass rush bugs him. I saw a lot of throws off target as a result. When he was throwing the running game, he has to go. He's going to run, but what you want to do with Lamar a lot of times is make him run in traffic. You don't want him to have all this space, do all these outside runs. So it seems like they really understood it as well. I do think, though, there was a lot of bad Ravens as well. Derrick Henry, 13 carries, 65 yards, not enough carries. That's just crazy. I don't know what to tell you. Like, every time we've lost, Derrick Henry, this is what it looks like: 13 carries for. Give Derrick Henry 20 carries consistently. I don't know. I don't know what else to say at this point. When it seems like in this situation, a lot of Justice Hill and all this. Don't do that. Run the ball. I think that's as simple as. I mean, anybody run the ball. Run the ball, especially if you have Lamar not having a great day. They seem to have a beat on Lamar or whatever. You give him more Derrick Henry. I mean, I think that was a case as well. Derrick Henry, however, did put the ball on the ground in this one. Not great overall for the receivers. Isaiah Likely was very good in this one. This is kind of what I see with him as well. He kind of performs well on bad days. I don't mean that as an insult, but he's kind of the safety valve. Like, there's nothing else is working, so we'll go with Isaiah Likely. I don't even mean that as an insult, but like that's kind of the way it felt. I'm getting blitzed. I can't get out. I can't get my receivers going. Well, I can go underneath to Isaiah Likely. 4 reception, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. I think he also put the ball on the ground as well. So not good overall from Isaiah Likely as well. Adafi Owe finally showed up. 2.5 sacks in this one. He's just got to be more consistent getting home. He's had 7 sacks, but he's had basically in 2 games. he's had one. I think one game he had 3.5 sacks, and this one he had like 2.5 sacks, and then we haven't seen it as much. Got to be more consistent getting home. Adafi Owe is a phenomenal athlete, no question about it. But you got to be more consistent getting home if actually you're going to win games. So that's the kind of the thing. Russell, never does well against the Ravens. I wanted to talk more about that last week, but Russell never does well. Every time I see Russell against the Ravens, he never does well against the Ravens. Matter of fact, I think that's not even right. There, hold on. So Russell, I'm gonna take that out because he didn't get a TD. there was five, I think it was 6 field goals, getting 18 points. He did have the one there in the end zone that was just a terrible throw that was picked off by Marlon Humphrey. He never does well against the Ravens. I don't think he did well in this one. I think like he had the one long pass to Pickens. I think that was about it for him. A lot of dink and dunk, a lot of underneath stuff. Ravens, I think, have him figured out. So as well, I don't. He at least is an upgrade over Justin Fields. They're able to move the ball some and did just enough. Najee Harris, I don't love Najee Harris. This is kind of like what I say about him. He's good, but he's a decent starter. I think like if you had, I don't know how to put this. If he was on like, let's say Buffalo or even here in Baltimore, like if you have a lot of guys around him and him, then that, but him being the focal point, he's not diverse enough. He doesn't really he doesn't really pass block well enough. 18 carries, 63 yards. They had him pretty much. I mean, they stopped the run. I mean, they did a little bit more than some teams are able to do against the Ravens run, but as well, Pickens as well, I think they had him well contained as well, except for the one real long pass that he was able to get deep. I mean, that's kind of Russell's thing, like the deep ball, getting that out there. That's probably was it as well, but they still weren't able to get the ball in the end zone. Could have been much worse. I thought the secondary moves that they made really helped a lot. Darius Washington now is going to be, according to John Harbaugh, the rest of the year, he's going to be your starting safety. Marcus Williams definitely on the bench. Eddie Jackson's role is going to be a lot less. Going to be a Darius as well. Kyle Hamilton in this one definitely playing more of a traditional safety role in this one. So we will see how that goes the rest of the year. They didn't give up 300 plus yards to Russell Wilson. So I guess that's an improvement. TJ Watt, I thought he one sack, but again, he was bothering the rush all day long. They had so much attention on him, for God's sake. I think that's why it wasn't worse. Watt's not having his best year, but he had sack. I think that's like 7.5 for him as well. So I think the defense really won the game. The defense has been winning for them all season long. Ravens beat themselves. Too many penalties in this one. Turning the ball over a lot. Turning the ball over several times. I think it was three turnovers. You had like 10 plus penalties in this one. You had an interception by Lamar, although that was more of a strip fumble. They call it a pick, but that was more of a strip fumble. But again, Tucker, oh gosh, I got nothing for you with Tucker. I got nothing for you with Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker's just not getting it done. Last year, the deep field goals, that's more common than what people think with kickers in a lot of cases. Some kickers just don't do as well with those 50 plus yards. This year, those are 2 kicks that he can make. I think one was 50 yards, but I think one was 49, 47. And I don't want to hear it about the holding. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Like if it's taking you this long to fix it, then get somebody else in there who can do it. Get Josh Johnson to hold, see if he can do better. Get Lamar to hold, see if he can do better. Get another punter, for God's sake. If it's this bad and it's because of the holding, then you need to switch the holding, or you need to get Jordan Stout to do better. I don't want to hear it after we are. I mean, this is week 12. We're talking about. So I don't want to hear about the holding. That doesn't hold water with me. I don't want to hear that. All right, so 18-16, Squealers over the Ravens. Now we got a Monday Night Football. I have been looking forward to this one personally. Not only just because they're brothers, but definitely the overlap of the two coaches is very interesting. It's these two coaches, obviously they're brothers, they're related. They're similar in a lot of ways. I mean, in terms of the way they manage a game, the way their philosophy is, the way it really is. I think even more now with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is uh, more tolerant now, I think. More of a nicer guy, more of a guy, I mean, as a compliment. He used to be super intense all the time, but now he's, mellowing a bit. But his team still very well. Excellent discipline of this guy. This guy is really a good coach, really good as well. So we're going to have the Harbaugh Bowl on Monday. Lamar, 2086, still in the MVP conversation. Obviously dipped down, not so great against the Steelers. Look at that, though. 25 interceptions, 25 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I barely even call that one an interception. Some of the interceptions, even those were tip balls. Lamar has been absolutely fantastic this year. I think he did lose some steam in the MVP race, but that's a week-to-week thing. He has a good game against the Chargers. I'm not worried about it. And I don't think he's honestly worried about the MVP, frankly. I think he's worried about how they're going to play in January and getting that right. Leading the league in rushing still is Derrick Henry. He's got a little bit more competition from Saquon, who's actually also tearing up the league in Philadelphia with that. So the Eagles are really playing well, and Derrick Henry, but it's obvious. Coach, get Derrick Henry the football. Get him the ball. Every time you run 20 plus times with Derrick Henry, you win the game. You're gonna have to in this one. I know the other guy on the other side is gonna run the ball. They never lose their identity. So I think that's what happens. I looked at it and I was so pleasantly surprised. I will use that word. I can't remember looking at a list of receivers, the top 5 receivers in the league, yards per carry, reception yards. Zay Flowers is number 5, top 5 in the league. 727, 4 touchdowns. Zay Flowers, so happy for him in his progression. Definitely, it looks like barring injury, we're finally going to get a 1,000-yard guy at a receiver, maybe like 1,200, 13. I mean, he's having that type of season. Not as big a games the last 2 weeks, but definitely Zay Flowers, I think, certainly the best receiver on this field coming out on Sunday at the wide receiver as well. Andrews kind of in stride, but definitely not the focal point, likely as well. Good stuff, I think, from the wide receiving core this year as well. I don't think that was the problem on Sunday. They had some problems with the zone, but I think on this game, I think they'll do better. The secondary of the Chargers is not quite as good. I don't think is what we saw last week. Marlon Humphrey had another interception. I think easy. He's been their best. He's the guy taking the ball away. Well, Ravens defense, and we talked about at the beginning, like Terrell Suggs and the history of the Ravens defense. It's not just good defensive rankings, even though we've had good defensive rankings throughout the years, but taking the ball away, stealing it from the other team, getting the interception. The guy that's been doing that has been Marlon Humphreys. Brandon Stevens has excellent coverage. I've been taking the coverage, but Brandon Stevens doesn't really seem to find the ball well as well. So he can cover, but he doesn't find the football. Marlon Humphrey finds the football, making the change of Darius Washington, Kyle Hamilton in the secondary as well. Not really a great receiving core with the Chargers. So you shouldn't be giving up a lot, and the Chargers should run a lot in this one. They kind of stick to their identity. Justin Herbert, 2186, 13 TDs, 1 interception. Justin Herbert is physically the prototype quarterback in the NFL. Great deep ball, good decision making. To me, I think when nobody notices, and I saw it last year with him, he moves the offense kind of slow. But I think that's why Jim Harbaugh coming in was so great for him, because he can run the ball now, right? Doesn't have to take command. I think he has a little bit of trouble taking command of the offense. Things are real simplified and everything for him. So good start, I think, obviously, by Justin Herbert as well. We know this guy, right? J.K. Dobbins, former Raven, having an outstanding year. Also, Gus Edwards is there. He's kind of taken over, though, as the starter. 152 carries, 726, 6 TDs. I think J.K. Dobbins is not a surprise. He's doing this in a Greg Roman offense as well. Went there. They understand the product knowledge. Hey, look, they wanted guys they could get for on offense. They're not spending money on offense yet on these outstanding guys. You bring guys in who understand what's going on, understand the system, working with Greg Roman before running the ball, and he's having a great year. J.K. Dobbins is an outstanding running back. I mean, if he's healthy, he can make people miss in the open field. He can run with power as long as he can stay healthy. Love his confidence. He's always having as well. Loves to play football. I think it's hard not to like J.K. Dobbins as a runner. I think this guy, is the second coming of Ed McCaffrey, with all due respect to Christian McCaffrey, his actual son. But in terms of the receiver, I knew what people were going to do with him being a wide receiver, say that he was an intermediate guy or a slot guy or whatever. I saw a lot of that. Ed McCaffrey was a guy who was an outside receiver. He was a good, solid home run hitter at times, and I think you see that with Ladd McConkey. I don't know if he's a top flight number one NFL receiver yet, but he's certainly getting the catches. I think they surprised some people in the draft. I thought maybe they would take a receiver. They would look at Rome Odunze, or they had a shot to take Malik Neighbors. They opted for the tackle to shore that up. Joe Alt's been great for them. And also, too, there was a lot of good receivers. And I think Ladd McConkey was a guy I think the Ravens might have been looking at the 30 spot. He went all the way to the second round, and it's worked out for them as well. So I think, though, their identity is running the ball. Anyway, that's the thing. They wanted to establish their identity running the football and then go build and enhance that. So I like what they're doing there with the Chargers. Tuli Tuipulotu. I think I messed that up. So you know probably the names Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Get to know this one. This guy all over the field. Really guy that's really kind of outplayed both of those guys there. And they're still there. I mean, I think Mack, was out with the injury last week, may play. Bosa, I think, is still there. Bud Dupree is a guy with experience. But they're rushing the passer big time. The Ravens tackles really need to play well against it. Part of why the Chargers have had more success this year is because the pass rush is really, really good in Los Angeles. I didn't say San Diego. I want to say San Diego. So the Chargers, the pass rush is really good. Defensively, this is a much, much, much better team than we saw last year when they played, where they had some guys, but they really were in a collection. This is a good group. We mentioned Mack, Bosa, Derwin James having an outstanding year for them. Asante Samuel is there, but I think he's on IR. I think you have a lot of their young corners there. This is a good Charger defense as well. So shout out to them getting it done. X Factor. Seems silly to put an X on Derrick Henry, but run the football. Run the football. Obviously, I'm surprised I need to say it. Every time Derrick Henry gets 20 carries, Ravens win. You shouldn't have an excuse not to run the football in this one. I see this a lot, not just with the Ravens, but in football in general, the last several years, where teams almost forget to run. They almost forget to do it, even in situations where it's obvious. Run the football. Get the ball on the ground and get that squared away. Darius Washington as well. How good is Darius as well? Darius is going to be the starter on offense, on defense, going forward, right next to Kyle Hamilton. May see some Marcus Williams, but it's going to be his job. And he deserves the opportunity. I think the secondary struggled, even though the Ravens have had success against Russell. I think this is a good time to go ahead and see and test it out and see how well they do as well. I think, though, the die has been cast. Marcus is not going to be back next year. I think the die has been cast. I think Darius is going to go ahead and get every opportunity to go ahead. Let's see how he can sustain it. Let's see how he can do as well. Eddie Jackson hasn't been cut that I saw, but he's definitely not in favor at the very least. So Ravens should win this game. I would say if you lose here, you'd be a little concerned. Be a little concerned because you're not. This is a team you should understand a lot of this thing. Former defensive coordinator, you have familiarity with them. So really interesting to see how Lamar bounces back too. That's kind of interesting. I almost said Lamar Jackson for X Factor, but interesting to see how they factor in. But I think Ravens actually win this game 28-10. I think they win convincingly in this one. I think the Chargers offense, I don't know if you have enough offense in this one. I think like the Ravens do a good job stopping the run. They've had a good run game this year in Los Angeles, but it's not, they don't have a stud. I think the Ravens do well in this one. But I'm a little worried because they didn't play well last week. All right. So let's get to the